Get in the know. Non-stop Vikings talk. It's Purple Daily on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
Welcome in. Purple Daily. Daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die. It's been 60 years. It's not that much to ask at this point. 6 decades in. Phil Mackey, Judd Zolgad, our executive producer Declan Goff is coming off 27 holes of vacation golf. We told him, go up to the cabin, get fresh, because you're going to be spinning 53 different plates during the season here. So Judd and I are going to hopefully not crash this podcast plane into the ground. We'll see what happens here. But the show is presented by our friends at Surly Brewing Company and also TCL. No matter what you watch, TCL has award-winning TVs for any budget, any space, all with stunning picture quality. And they make more than just TVs. They offer mobile products, audio devices, home appliances. TCL bring you joy and simplicity through innovative technology. Learn more at TCL.com. So we're kind of in this weird little 2-week period before the season where, you know, we've started doing, we've mirrored Feedback Friday on both Mackey and Judd and Purple Daily. So Fridays are going to be all about Feedback Friday on both shows. And the Saturday episodes of Purple Daily are eventually going to be sort of a preview of the game and sort of a gambling look at what might happen to overs and unders, and we'll look at sort of what the markets are saying. But that's not going to start till next week. So we figure let's just do another dive into the comment section here and hand the show over to the audience. Purple Daily reads your comments on YouTube, the Score North app. You can always send us stuff. So let's do it, Judd. You ready for this?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Let's go.
All right. Colin Ireland via the Score North app says, Phil, here's my take on the Vikings developing a young quarterback. Number one, take a quarterback every other year. Competition brings out the best in each one. Number two, don't draft a quarterback from a program that seldom loses in college. If they can't handle losing in college, their mind will be off when they inevitably lose in the pros. And three, don't rush a quarterback to start day one. Having a quality veteran to bridge the transition will only make them stronger. My future, hopefully, quarterback in next year's draft is, God, I don't know how to pronounce this, but the Clemson kid, DJ Ugalele, right? Thanks, boys. Keep up the good work. Skol, Colin from Florida. So I guess, you know, your thoughts on his philosophy, but maybe the bigger question here is, when will or when should, now that Kellen Mond is done, when should or when will they take another stab at drafting a quarterback?
Well, first of all, I will say this. I would never not draft a kid because he won a ton if he's that good. So, like, yes, I get it. If he is a product of a system, then there would be some concern. But if you just won a ton because you're great, I'm not going to disqualify you because it might get tough. That, to me, would be a major mistake. I think they need to draft a quarterback next year. Now, is that for sure the guy that's going to replace Kirk? Probably not. But here's my thought process on how things have changed with this team, and especially with O'Connell and an entire new staff here too. These guys are supposed to be quarterback whisperers. And like, you can't declare, well, okay, in 2 years we're going to suck, and it's going to be great because we'll get a quarterback then, right? I think the reality of drafting a quarterback, Phil, is that you need to take shots, and you need to identify guys who, hopefully through your experience of being a quarterback whisperer, you like. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But you're now taking shots. Like, you can't just decide. The Vikings don't have enough like 3 and 4 win years to be like, okay, we're going to have another really bad year and draft one high.
Yeah.
So I think there's one of two options for the 2023 draft. One is you take a shot in like the second or third round or late first round or something like that. The second one is you decide that this is going to be the year that we take a big time shot at trading up and taking a top one. But like, because I think we think of this too simplistically, which is, well, you'll just stink one time and get a great one. Like, this franchise, you know, they have not had a franchise quarterback for any amount of term since Fran Tarkington, which was 1961 to 1978. So the thought process, I think, needs to be a little bit broader. But I also think, like, Kellen Mond, that draft pick, I like the shot. It was the wrong guy. In retrospect, Davis Mills probably makes more sense as the shot, but I also trust that this administration is going to have a better feel for that position, and Rick did not. And so, you know what? I would say next year is the start of you start to draft them and see, because you like them, how they work out.
Yeah, Kirk is 34, going to be 35. He signs these short-term contracts because he wants to. I want to be clear. I've seen a lot of people. I just got another tweet this morning here from someone because now that Russell Wilson signed a new contract and then Lamar Jackson's going to sign a new contract. So I just got another tweet from someone showing the latest average annual value for quarterback contracts or most total guarantees even. And he doesn't show up as high on these lists, right? And I keep telling these people, it has nothing to do with the average annual value. It has everything to do with the cap hit for that season. And because he signs these short-term contracts, 1-year extension, 2-year extension, at no point has he ever wanted to lock into like a 5 or a 6-year thing.
Right.
The flexibility the team has to lower a cap hit to make a run for a season is a lot less. They restructured his contract this year, and he still has the third highest cap hit because there's nowhere to put the money because he's only under contract through next year. So to me, it's like you don't even know if he's going to be your guy in 2 years from now because he plays hardball every year for a new contract. Mm-hmm. And so just by nature of the uncertainty of will he be your quarterback in 2 years or not, and how much money he takes up relative to the cap, making it harder to build a Super Bowl caliber roster, my radar is way up to draft a quarterback in 2022. I'm committed. If he plays well this year, or I should say 2023, if he plays well this year, he's the starting quarterback next year, and that's fine. But you don't know what this thing's going to look like when he's 36 in 2024, and so you should absolutely start preparing. But the problem you run into is, let's say they have a good season, and next year it's like, oh, the expectations are there's a leap coming, and maybe the Packers are no longer with Aaron Rodgers, and now all of a sudden you might be staring at an 11 or 12 win season. Would you waste your first round pick, short-term waste, not long-term, but short-term waste your first round pick on something that's not going to help you in 2023? Well, I mean, the Packers did it, and people torched them, right? Why would you draft a quarterback of the future when you just won 13 games? Right. So at some point, they're going to have to confront, we're pretty good. Like, there's no signs that they're going to be a 5-win team, like you said, and be drafting number 3 overall.
Right.
So while you're pretty good, do you have the cojones to still make that draft pick in the first round, like the Chiefs did, for instance, when they had Alex Smith and they were a 10 or 11-win team 5 years ago?
I think the thing that these guys are doing that probably is what they're gambling on is this. I think by the end of the season, and look, I don't think the Vikings are going to win, just to be clear, a Super Bowl. I think they might be a playoff team. But I think there's no question by the end of the regular season, these guys are going to have a really good feel for who Kirk can be or is. Because, I mean, they are banking on the fact they're going to change him. There's no question about that. They are banking on the fact that they're going to get the statistical production or more than Kirk has provided, which statistically is good, but they're also going to get way more wins and that Kirk is going to be freed. And I think the 17 games the Vikings are going to play in the eyes of Kwesi and O'Connell will provide the answer to, is this guy your guy?
Yeah. Michael Leach commented on the YouTube channel a couple days ago on one of the episodes we did. OMFG. I was going to applaud you guys for doing such a great episode and refraining from mentioning Kirk Cousins until I got 40 minutes in. You guys just can't help yourselves, can you? Literally the worst rumination I have ever seen. Here's my question to guys like Michael, all right? These people that don't want talk shows to talk about the quarterback of your favorite team, really? You don't want to hear a discussion about the most important player, most important position, the most influential, meaningful position, and how he may or may not take a step forward, his contract, all these things. You literally cringe when we or others talk about Kirk Cousins, or is it that you cringe only if you hear what you don't want to hear, which is anything that doesn't fall into the bin of Kirk is a god and Kirk is being held back for 7 years by all of his teammates and coaches. You know, I guess if you think that he walks on water and he should only be praised, and because he throws for 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns, there cannot possibly be any sort of gap in his game, right? Like, I don't know. I just find this group of people, Michael, interesting that it's like, oh my God, I'm melting every time someone says something halfway critical of your favorite quarterback. All right, cool.
40 minutes in is a really long time.
That's a lot of restraint. A lot of restraint.
I'm going to pat myself on the back now. My rotator cuff. I just hurt myself. Yeah, that's a long time. In fact, I would say that we should have gotten to Kirk in that episode quicker. I'm a little bit
probably should have done it after 20 minutes, quite frankly.
Yeah, 40 minutes. I mean, dude, and really, if you were like, I'm 40 minutes in and these jokers, I'd just stop the podcast at that point. Like, you've heard a lot.
You have. And thank you for listening for 40 minutes. We really 100%. Appreciate that.
Yeah, that's really good. But I mean, at that point in time, you've got the permission of Judd, Sports Dad, and more importantly, the man who is the CEO of Vikings Twitter. You have our permission to hit the escape button or the X us out or something. Move on to something else.
Yeah. It is free for you guys. The content is
I'm not
free.
trying to be a jerk, too. I'm just saying 40 minutes is a long time. You got your day. You got your Vikings fill. Zero Cousins talk until then.
Drew V via the Score North app says, I just toasted a surly to Sports Dad, doctor of reckless speculation, Judd Zulgad. The fact that this dude had an exploded appendix on a Saturday and was back in the studio the following Tuesday throwing heaters is mind-blowing. Judd is my favorite sports mind, and I trust his takes more than anyone in the sports media. If you guys ever want to publish a book of Judd's text message takes from the hospital while he was pumped full of painkillers, I'll be the first in line. I'm sure he was dropping some insane knowledge bombs. Judd was texting. There was very few gaps in Judd's communication. So you were slinging takes, but you were tweeting a lot of your takes, too.
I was tweeting my takes, yeah. I tweeted the Vikings thing up until they wheeled me out for surgery.
Yeah, it's all public record.
Half.
It's all public record. Let's see here. Fani via the Score North app says, love the show. My daily listen when walking my dogs. Last year, thank you. Yeah, last year, the Vikings defense was bad and the offense was average. We went 8-9 and lost like 6 games within one score. This year, let's say the defense pretty much stays the same with the same offensive personnel, better coaching. Even if they take a half a step, maybe they become a top 10 offense. They should win 10 games, if not more. I feel the only way to go is getting better. If they don't, we'll have to start doubting the coaching staff as they trusted these players and kept them. Do you kind of view it like that? That the floor seems pretty high for this team, right?
Yeah, that was the goal. Absolutely, they kept everybody just about right. Like yes, this team should be good. I think that this team is best case probably a borderline playoff team. But I mean, yeah, they are. This is not the Bears, and I think the reason that Ryan Poles didn't get the job here, and he is definitely a guy with more practical football experience than Kwesi, is twofold. One, I think the Bears are paying him more, which is a huge thing. And two, I think Ryan Poles had designs on probably not the same moves, because I mean he's basically on purpose decimated the Bears roster, but I think he probably told the Wilfs, we're going to make, Kirk might not be my guy, and they're like, whoa, and so yes, if the Vikings have a really bad year, it's a disappointment. Like but they chose the rules too.
Yeah. So, there's a few things now. Injuries could derail anything, right? If
yes, that's a different.
Daniil Hunter gets hurt again or something,
you're right,
or Kirk goes down, but if we're not counting massive sort of roster changing injuries, there's a lot of things that should just get better by default. You're not going to be historically bad defensively inside 2 minutes anymore. That was partially incompetence and bad play, and it was partially just ridiculously bad luck. You kidding me? Really? You're not going to stumble your way into a defensive stop once or twice more often. So that'll kind of correct itself. And then offensively, I really feel like, so they were like 14th in points per game or something last year. Mm-hmm. And I get that the offensive line isn't perfect, but it should be better this year. It's really hard to not be a top 10 offense points-wise with the things that they have. They have a reliable passer, an accurate, reliable passer. They've got some of the best weapons of any team in the NFL. Dalvin Cook, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, KJ Osborne. If your offensive line is just passable in 2/3 of the game, how are you not higher than 14th in points per game? It's a real indictment on not maximizing the pieces that you had schematically, chemistry, et cetera, et cetera.
If this is not a top 10 scoring offense, it's a major disappointment to me.
Yeah.
I mean, O'Connell was brought in because of what? Because of his background with quarterbacks, because of his background with McVay with the Rams. Like, this needs to be, the Vikings have set themselves up to definitely disappoint us if they don't accomplish certain things. Now, when I think that we're going to do the schedule projection again next week, right, at some point in time. But I mean, I think I'm still going to land on 9 wins or so.
Yeah.
So like if this team wins 7 games, I'm going to be now. You're right. If guys get hurt, it totally changes the ball game. But if this team, as currently constructed, wins 7 or fewer games, I think that's a big bust. Like, I don't think there's but they were rebuilding something here. Like, there is an opportunity here, I think, to do exactly what the Eagles did last year, which is contend for a playoff spot and possibly like they did sneak into the playoffs.
Let me bring up my days since calculator here real quick. So I'm doing kind of off the top of my head here, but the last time the Vikings were above 500, I think the regular season, the 2019 regular season, ended like early in the second week of January. So let's just call it like January 8th.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
So that would have been 2020 calendar year. And then today's date is September 3rd here on this Saturday, 2022. Okay, days since the Vikings were last above 500 in the regular season, 970 days. 970 days. So if they beat the Packers, it will be what, 978 days or something. It's been almost 1,000 days since they were above 500 because they haven't been above 500 at any point the last 2 years.
Right.
They've been
That's
chasing.
Remarkable. Absolutely remarkable.
Before we get to a couple more here, one of our coworkers actually, did he sign up or is he on the verge of signing up for Living?
No, he signed up.
Awesome.
Chris Ron, the guy who got me, who basically said we've got an opportunity, Judd, to work with our friends at Livia Weight Control Centers. Chris Ron has joined. He is down in 1 week 6+ pounds.
Woo.
Dawn joined 16 pounds.
Woo.
Me 40 pounds and keeping it off. Ladies and gentlemen, Livia works. It works, and I can tell you right now, their anniversary sale. They want you to join the program for, and I will say this slowly because it's such a good deal, 50% off. 50% off to drop the weight, and then most importantly, to keep the weight loss up. It is not a diet program. Weight control is the key, and it's run by dietitians and people who know exactly what you need so that you can not only get back into those clothes that don't fit, but you can continue to wear them and not gain weight back. 855-GO-LIVEA, Livia, LIVEA.com, in the state or out, because if you're not in the state, they can send you their food and do a virtual visit. We've had people from Arizona, from Florida, New York, California join. If you are a Purple Daily fan and you're saying, I would like to drop the weight like Judd did or Chris did or Dawn did, it's this simple. It starts Livia, LIVEA.com.
Also, I want to remind the audience here real quick that Vikings Vent Line is the most fan-friendly and interactive post-game show in all of Minnesota sports, maybe even in the world, for all we know. Hard to quantify that. But Vikings Vent Line, which started off for years as a radio call-in show on 1500 ESPN with Judd and me, is now exclusive only to the Purple Daily YouTube channel. Right after Vikings games are over, we give our spiel and give our take for a few minutes, but then we turn the show over to you guys, and who the hell knows what's going to happen. I mean, Chancey in Fargo lit a dumpster fire one time. Bob in Pennsylvania from a hot tub ranting and raving.
Multiple times from the hot tub.
We've had drunk people from the game just like on their phones, but we turned Vikings Vent Line over to you guys, and it's exclusive to the YouTube channel here. So if you're not already subscribed to the Purple Daily YouTube channel, check it out. And be sure to join us right after Vikings games are over, and then we will explain how you can get on the show as well. There's a process for that, but it's a blast. It's a good time. So mark that on your calendar. Paul Silva here via the Score North app says, I don't think the Vikings not picking up Bradbury's fifth-year option was a vote of no confidence as much as you guys do. His option number would have been like $16 million because the NFL has all the offensive line positions under the same number for that fifth-year option. The highest paid center is at $14 million right now. They were never going to pick up the option at that price, even if he was amazing. I'm not saying he's going to stick around or that he's good, because he's not, but I don't think it's as big of a deal as you guys say it is. Would they probably have, if they love him, and they could still do this, would they probably have wiped out that number and smoothed it into future years on a contract extension? Do I think they would have been paying him $14 or $16 million? No. But I think it's partially a reflection on how much money it would cost you, but it's also partially a reflection on he's not good.
Yes.
So,
it's the totality.
Yeah.
Like nothing ever has screamed, you know what? He might be okay. Nothing.
Yeah. So I get what you're saying, Paul, and you're probably right. It's probably not that big of a deal because they probably weren't going to pay him that in the fifth year anyways, but they don't believe in him as the long-term center yet. He has to make that perception change this season. And from what we have heard, it's not like they went out and signed a real, actual, credible center in free agency, but the Chris Reed thing, the Austin Schlottman thing, they would love to generate a more meaningful push behind Garrett Bradbury so that if after week 1 or week 2 it's just not working, they can make that switch.
Yeah. And Phil, I think too, for a first-round pick, okay? I think it's fair to say that by year 2 or 3, as a first-round center, you should be vying for a Pro Bowl berth, right?
Yeah.
And if this guy had by now become a perennial Pro Bowl player, I don't think that you would just say we are not going to fulfill his option and he can hit the market, because he'd get signed and paid well. So, yeah, I think it's the totality of the fact that for where he was picked, again, for expectations, he's been a flop. Like, there's no question about it. He can run block. That's great. But when you're taken with the 19th pick as a center, you got to do it all, and you should be, by now, in my opinion, at the upper echelon of your position in the league, and he is nowhere close.
Positionally, it's a gamble to take a first-round resource and spend it on that position. And there's a reason why there's not that many centers drafted in the first round or even the second round. So for you to sort of say as an organization, not only are we going to spend a first-round resource on this position, we believe so much in this guy that this is going to be worth it. He almost had to be a Pro Bowler. Yes. He almost had to just be a ready-made solution.
Yes.
Long-term guy. The next, what Matt Burke was, what Jeff Christie was. John Sullivan was very good for a number of years. Mm-hmm. Michael Turback via the Score North app says, I'm 25 years old. I've been a huge Twins, Vikings, Timberwolves fan my entire life. I have zero remembrance of the Twins winning a playoff game, especially against the Yankees. The most I've seen for Minnesota playoff success is 2 blown NFC championship game by the Vikings. All I know is Minnesota misery. All I want is 1 championship from either 3 of these franchises before I die, preferably the Vikings. Sports Dad, do you have any advice for young Michael?
God. Michael, so he was born when? He's 25?
He just turned 25 in July. Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh boy, this is a long life you've got.
1997.
And you're a kid. So you've got a recollection of the 2009 game and then the 2017 game. Here's my thought, from Sports Dad to young Michael. Go to the liquor store, pick up some Surly, and just enjoy life. Enjoy life. Because you know what? Like, I hope you get a championship. You really should. Theoretically, you got a lot of time left here, right? Like, you should get a championship. I can't assure it's the Vikings. I hope, for your sake, it definitely is. But yeah, just enjoy it. Like, once in the case of a lot of people who consume our show, your parents, especially your dad, confined you to a life of being a sports fan in what I think we can safely say is often sports-wise a God-forsaken town. You got to enjoy something, right? You got to enjoy the small victories, enjoy the small wins, and hope that this regime, for the Vikings especially, because this is where it's going to start, can find that quarterback.
Yeah. I had a conversation with a friend the other day. We were just texting back and forth, and we were talking about the Twins and how, God, the Twins are just... They're just perpetually underachieving what you hope they can do, right? They haven't won a playoff game in 18 years. They are 0-18 in the playoffs. They're barely on pace to finish above 500 this year. So the hardest thing to do as a sports fan is control the emotional attachment that you have to teams that you know aren't really going to do anything at the end of the rainbow.
It's a relationship.
You know, it's like with the Twins.
Relationship.
You kind of know the Twins probably aren't making a run this year. Like maybe they can win a playoff game.
Right.
But you want them to be like there's this gap between the reality of where they are and what you expect them to be. And the Vikings have constantly fought that gap too. So how do you stay in love with your team and emotionally committed to some extent, but also not let it ruin your week? You know, and there's just such a fine line there. Listen, if it does ruin your week, we are here as therapists for you on a daily basis
absolutely.
on Purple Daily. And there's nothing. I'm not judging you. I'm just saying sometimes it can be hard to fight that battle.
You know, that brings up a really good question too. And of late, I've given this one more and more thought. You know, we get a lot of pushback because our show is one of the few shows that does this. The pushback is, you guys really think expectations are going to change that team? Like, you guys hold them to expectations. Who cares what you guys think? You know, the more I think about this, too, my God, look at the expectations that a lot of this town does not have. And answer me this. Is that working? Mm-hmm. You know, well, Rocco said this, or you know, O'Connell or previously Spielman said this. What do you expect? I expect more. Like, but we always get this from a certain faction and not a lot of you. So I appreciate this. I feel like we've cultivated and found a group of people who think like we do. So I want to make this very clear. I appreciate you. But I also feel like this town is filled with, well, you guys are going to hold them to expectations. Who cares about that? I mean, okay, is what you're doing now working? Like,
I think people that have sort of removed themselves from expectations, I think they have found a different way to consume sports. I think in their minds, it's like, well, if the team doesn't do well, then just enjoy the ballpark, right? And listen, there's a lot of sports fans like that too. I think for us, it's like we've invested as fans, and then professionally, like we've invested in. We would really like to see a payoff at some point. I guess. And I will say, I do think that fans and media can apply pressure to organizations.
Yes.
Do they always respond to that pressure? Not necessarily, but. You're telling me that some of the other markets, especially East Coast markets, like Philadelphia, Boston, New York, that those front offices and ownership groups don't respond to public outcry or pressure? Or now, should you be making every decision as a franchise based on what Fireman Ed thinks in the Jets end zone? Probably not. But yeah, I do think that the only if you feel like a team is perpetually underachieving, the only thing that you can do is make your voice heard, and hopefully we can help amplify on shows like this.
And I do feel like there's more Vikings fans who do apply pressure. It's not across the board, but I do feel I feel like they are so popular in the state that there certainly is a large group of fans who probably think along the same lines that we do. I guess my poster child is the Twins. Like, there's a lot of things about that team that should get pushback, and instead it just gets, okay, they suck, I'm checked out. Or
they just kind of waltz through for 20 years, disappointing.
Just quickly, can you imagine if Carlos Correa had signed his desired, let's say, Phil, 10-year deal with the Yankees, okay? And was underachieving in pressure situations as bad as he is this year.
Oh.
Do you know what the tabloids would do to him?
He'd be getting crushed, yes.
He'd be getting absolutely crushed. And you know what? To a certain degree, he would deserve it.
Yeah. I think we feel bad in Minnesota. It's like, oh, don't make him feel bad.
Here's one for you.
He's fine.
If Cousins had decided in 2018 to take the Jets offer, which was extremely competitive, and I think they bid more than the Vikings did, okay? And I know the Jets are chronically crappy, but what would the tabloid and fan reaction been if he had achieved with the Jets what he has achieved or not achieved here?
Yeah, I have a hard time believing that the New York media would be tripping over themselves to massage the narrative that everything else around him is the problem, right? It would be about him.
Yes. And there would be a counter, I guarantee you, in the New York Post of days that the team was under 500 with Kirk Cousins.
Yep.
Like that's
and the Vikings have been 500, but they haven't been above 500 in almost 1,000 days.
But think about that for a second,
dude.
But think about that for a second, and then to say, well, but it's not Kirk's fault. It's the offensive line's fault. Huh?
Yeah, dude. It's amazing. So, well, we're here as therapists to help you talk through all of this stuff and to help ourselves talk through some of this stuff on a regular basis. Purple Daily, also presented by our friends at Federated Mutual Insurance Company. So Federated, been around for over 100 years. Their history is rich with innovative, committed people that are helping businesses maximize their success, and their corporate culture is grounded in equity, integrity, teamwork, and respect. These 4 cornerstones create the foundation that supports all interactions and decision-making. Find out more at federatedinsurance.com, where it's our business to protect yours. All right. Declan with the final off-season edition of Vikings Vent Line tomorrow on Purple Daily, and then the regular season bonanza begins. Alex Boone back in the mix next week. Don't forget about the other shows we have on this Purple Daily network, Before We Die with Jesse and Thor, and also Realistic Randy Rants with Declan. So we've got you covered. And then Judd and Chip with Purple Access every single week. So we've got the flagship show, and then we've got all these awesome little spin-off shows on this network. Thank you all for consuming, however you do, Purple Daily Vikings entertainment.